I didn't know. And I still don't know what I want to do with the rest of my life. But what I did was that I tried to get a job. My first job, as I said, was as a mechanic with my uncle. My second job when I was in the Polytechnic was as a volunteer for 1 year with Catholic Relief Services, doing relief work in Chamarajnagar after a dam burst. And then I went up to Bidar for drought relief, then came back and then completed the course. And couldn't find a job with my ceramics qualification. So I joined Postal Interfranc as a salesman of office equipment. And then got bored after 2 years and quit. And then was hanging around for about a year, and then again there was a lot of pressure to find a job, to settle down. You know how it is. And then I joined EFICO. I was with EFICO for 2 years, and then I went to Asha Niketan. So the pattern was that I would work for about 1.5 years, 2 years, take a break of 6 months to a year, as long as your money lasted, then start working again. Finally, I wandered around the country and then came back in 81. In 83, I joined the last organization I worked for, the Ecumenical Christian Center. And I was there for 6 years. In all this time, my thought was that I should retire by the time I was 35. Because I believe that you should retire when you have the energy to do things, to enjoy life. You shouldn't retire when you're old and unable to enjoy life. I'm happy that I retired at 36. Once when I was talking to my mother, I told her that in my 50 odd years of life, I had just about managed to work for a little over 10 years. And she was horrified. I think I was very fortunate to have been able to do that. 3 factors actually. The first was that I wanted to get married. And the girl I wanted to marry said that one of the conditions of marriage was that we would leave the city and go and live in the village. The second thing was that one of my students had questioned me about village life, because by then I was teaching people about the importance of villages. And we were talking in terms of Marxist ideology, the Gandhian overlay to it. And he asked me, what do you really know about villages? And I replied that I had been working for 15 years on and off in villages. I had lived there, I knew the people and everything. He was convinced, but that question troubled me. Because I realized that even though I had lived and worked in villages, Bangalore was always home. And you came back to Bangalore and to a certain mindset and lifestyle. You had your bike, you had your t-shirt and jeans. I'm talking about 30, 35 years ago. You had your weekends. So wherever you went, the mindset was that of Bangalore. You never really left Bangalore. You carried Bangalore along with you wherever you went. The third factor was that when we were looking about issues of the sustainability of life and alternatives to the commercialization of life and values and of culture that we were seeing happening in Bangalore at that time, we wanted to explore alternates. And so we decided to move to a small village the foothills of the Western Ghats, close enough to the sea. And that's how we moved. My favorite story always is that my wife was my boss and I was her secretary. And like every good secretary, I married the boss. Susie Nelitanam, she was the director at ECC, which was my last job, originally from Kerala. And when we moved, she made two things very clear. The first was that I would not have any involvement in social work. And the second was that we would find a place that was far enough from our relatives so that we could concentrate on our life together. So this was one reason, these were the reasons why we moved to that place. I had very romantic expectations. Here we were, two young people, not so young people, married, going off, and you're going to set up this beautiful Garden of Eden, live happily ever after, grow your own food, live in harmony with nature, and all that sort of thing. But if I had known what village life really was, when you couldn't go back and you had to live like that, I doubt whether I would have gone. And today for me, that is the main realization, that those who talk about agricultural policy or those who talk about the life of the villagers or those who talk about the needs of the village people have absolutely no idea of what village life is like. One evening I was sitting around, beautiful evening, I was sitting on a veranda looking at the land. And I saw this coconut tree. And I saw this land and I said, how nice it is. This all belongs to me. This is my land. Best coconut tree. It's about 70, 75 years old. I had not planted the tree. I know the man whose father planted that tree there. And in those days, there were tenants on the land, and the landlord would not allow you to plant a tree because that showed some sign of ownership. So now the landlord is gone, that tenant is gone, and I'm sitting there. And it struck me, it is not me who owns the land, it is the land who owns me. And when you begin to understand that the land owns you, your whole attitude towards the land changes, the relationship changes. Because you no longer have that arrogance that you can do miracles with it. You have the humility to accept the miracles that the land does to you. They say that when the Buddha was asked if there is a God, he said the question is not important. Because whatever you say is speculation. What is important is your life here on earth and how you live it. You have control over that. You live your life in a way that is honorable and in a way that is true to your dharma, your ideology, or your spiritual belief. And that's all. This is what Fukuoka said, and I would like to end with that. He said human beings were created to sing, to dance, to make love, to write poetry. And he says life, nature has the capacity to sustain us in that. We unnecessarily get bogged down in chasing illusions which take us nowhere. So that is why I say you need to discover who you are and what your place in life is. Because we are meant to be children of love, of light, and of laughter.